So our final segment here, Mike DiSabato, HBO documentary Surviving Ohio State. Mike, the lead plaintiff in the Dr. Richard Strauss sexual assault misconduct case against the Ohio State University, filed in 2018, Mike.
Yes.
All right. How much has your life changed, Mike, since coming out about the abuse to making the film to now, obviously, the last 2 weeks, it's been in the top of HBO's movies, all movies. What was the actual metrics that you guys on it and data and viewership that you got on Surviving Ohio State?
Yeah. It within 24 hours it debuted at number one on Max. I'm told the documentaries typically don't fall in the top 10 when it comes to viewership. So it was the director, and I know HBO folks were surprised and excited with the feedback and the numbers. It stayed number one for almost 2 weeks. I still get daily um, text messages and feedback about the you know thanking us for coming forward. And so yeah, it's been overwhelming. Going back and reliving some of that trauma. Yeah, it's been it's not easy being a whistleblower. It's not easy talking about this subject. It's become easier, and I'm glad that we that this film has come out to give us a platform um, to talk about a very serious subject that I think is going to benefit society and young. If we can protect uh, athletes, young athletes, if we can protect children um, better because of this movie, I think we're doing something good for the world. So yeah, it's I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 30 years ago. We evolve and whatnot. And, um, but yeah, just trying each day to be, to look for gratitude and, um, and like I said, I'm proud to be on this team of guys that has stepped up and been so brave to do so.
I know that you were a big part of the creative process, right? Because you're obviously you have to give interviews and you're arranging interviews and you're trying to bring other guys into the fold to talk about what happened to them. What is it like when you're at the forefront of it and you have to when you're drawing others into something that's obviously an unpopular thing and well, not to be it's like a shameful thing. That's like what you said. People feel shame from this, and that's why a lot of men don't talk about it until they get into their 50s, right?
Mhm.
When you're bringing people in and you're trying to get, hey, just do an interview for the movie.
Mhm.
What's that like? Did you have any creative? I mean, I know it's a director, producer. I understand
No,
that. You don't have any creative. You're just, hey,
no, I was.
I brought this to the light. You guys tell our story. Is it something like that?
They approached the director approached not just me but several of us. She talked to over 100 uh, survivors about the movie, and like I said, it was 3.5 years ago. Um, I had no um, creative influence or whatnot. I was just a subject, and really actually don't appear in the film, significantly, other than a couple situations where I'm quoted and whatnot. But yeah, so this was HBO. This was Eva Orner, really. She's become a sister to us. Her storytelling, just she's. I was impressed when I first met her. In part because of her pedigree and her accolades. But she's become a sister. Her work. This documentary is it's beautiful in a lot of ways. It's hard to watch and it's difficult to embrace, but it's yeah, I'm glad to be a part of it.
You say George Clooney's name a lot. What does
Hmm.
he do as he's a director, correct?
Yeah. Well, he was an executive producer, so
Executive producer.
he wasn't involved in the day-to-day development of this. He helped fund it
Got it.
and lent his name to the marketing piece of it. Um, which, again, I'll be forever grateful. Here's a guy that with the his brand, and for him to support us in that way is significant. And I've got a lot of respect for George and his willingness to take stands like this, and speak truth to power. Yeah, I think I know he just completed a Broadway stint on a the title was "Good Luck and Good Night and Good Luck," based on Edward R. Murrow. So George is, he's not afraid to take a stand against power, and speak to power in a powerful way. And yes, having his name associated with the film certainly has, um, I it's helped draw eyeballs, I'm sure.
Eva Orner, George Clooney. Um, could you text or call either one of them if you had to? Or is Eva
Eva
accessible and
and
he's not?
Actually, John Wertheim's also involved from 60 Minutes and Sports Illustrated.
Are they
John,
accessible to you, Mike? Where have
John,
they
yeah,
done
John,
that?
George, I'd worked through his folks.
Gotcha.
I have not personally met him so far. I hope to do so sometime soon. But Eva, we speak to. I mean, I can text her anytime. John Wertheim as well has become a good friend. He his role in the movie is, I think, he brings um, he brings a an element from a journalist standpoint that is 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes correspondent, Sports Illustrated, the guy. So to have him support us was significant as well. And HBO, it's HBO. You know, at the end of the day, they agreed to put their name on this and support us, and I'll be an HBO customer for the rest of my life.
Well, if the Dolans would start paying people up here in Cleveland, I might do some HBO stuff. I'm
Yeah.
gonna put it out there. The Dolans are the Dolans are they are home box office. You know that, right?
You know what? You and I had talked about that in the past. Actually, I didn't put that together, frankly, Zab. But yeah, yeah. I've heard your stories
Yeah, Larry
about.
Larry, who just passed at
Yeah.
94, lived across from Ferd and Tom's elementary school.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I really want him to. I would like for them to sell the team to someone who wants to pay her people. It doesn't matter. Cleveland's gonna be cursed anyway. And you're a Yankees fan, so I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear the. I don't want to hear your Darth Vader music. I don't want to hear your evil empire. I don't care. I just want my team to win up here.
I'd love to see Cleveland teams win.
Okay.
Frankly, I mean,
Well, well, well.
I grew up watching the Yankees because my dad was a Yankee fan, because his brother Tony played for George Steinbrenner at Aquinas back in the day. Little to, most people don't know that George married um, his wife is from Upper Arlington. He, like I said, he was a coach at Aquinas High School, Catholic high school. It's no longer um, in business.
Steinbrenner's from Cleveland, dude. You know that, right?
What's that?
George Steinbrenner's from Cleveland.
Well, yeah, exactly. So my point is, I grew up with that, with the Columbus Clippers were the AAA affiliate. So Jeter and
And that recently switched over in like the last
yeah,
5, 7 years, right?
yeah, it was like 5 or 6, 7 years. They're
Yeah.
now Cleveland is
Yeah,
the
they're the
AAA
yeah.
affiliate. So, but when I was a kid, Mattingly and Jeter and um, all those guys came through Columbus at one point. So I was just a Yankee fan. Plus, they won. I mean, I like, who doesn't
Oh,
like
there
a
we go.
winner?
You know what was real shocking? The Yankees win, and you had an uncle named Tony.
Yeah.
Two shocking things. I want you to know that. Two very
But
shocking things.
I also grew up a Boston Celtic fan, and
Man,
again,
I couldn't hate you anymore. Otherwise, I could punch you right
yeah.
through the
So I'm New
computer.
York Boston.
Gee.
But again, I used to be I used to be in the apparel business and worked for companies that had NFL and I worked for Puma at one point when the Browns came back to Cleveland. So I have a Cleveland Browns jersey, Zeb, actually. And I sold a ton of Cleveland Indians product during the 90s when they were winning
They
big
were the
numbers.
best team in baseball, and then they canceled the
Yeah, so
season. Yeah,
they were great.
yeah, they were gonna
And
win. It would
the
have been
buyer,
absurd.
I actually called on the Indians team shop for several years, and oh my God, we big numbers we did through that team shop in the 90s. So yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I like to follow the Celtics because I grew up with Larry Bird. I just love this. Actually, John Havlicek was a Buckeye, and so my dad, you know, loved Havlicek. So and they won. That didn't hurt, right? They were the guys that were on TV all the time. So but again, I appreciate elite athletes and and elite, in teams and whatnot. Um, so yeah, I mean, if Cleveland could win a title, when LeBron won, I know where I was that day, and when the Cavs won that, I was actually in Bentonville, Arkansas. I had a meeting with Walmart the next day, and I remember being in a sports bar and thinking, "Oh my, they pulled this off." That was a great day.
So, what's next for you? I know Mark Coleman has been on a media tour for this to promote the
Mhm.
film. I did an interview where he kept pushing me away at the state wrestling tournament. You guys said he was messing with me. I don't know.
He was
I don't
just
know what to
creating.
believe.
Listen. He was just creating space so that he could be presented in the best light possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
So
the Godfather of ground and pound doesn't need to be presented in a. He's just a man that is feared. I don't think that it matters what he really looks like on camera.
yeah.
Just me. But he's been on a media blitz for this. You guys were in New York City for at Tribeca. He's done an Ariel Hawani show.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's a little bigger than the GOhioCast podcast, but
Mhm.
Mark has been out there. Mark's a Hall of Famer. Mark's the Godfather of ground and pound. Mark's been beating the pavement on this one.
Mhm.
Where do you guys go from here? What have you been doing for media? Who do you talk to? Do people talk to you? Do wrestling people not talk to Mike DiSabato anymore because they think he's a flim flammer, shyster, this, that, the other, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
Fair weather fan, Yankees, Celtic. Now I got new ammo against you. But like, does wrestling media talk to you anymore? Does MMA media talk to you anymore? You were one of the big players in MMA as far as the apparel brand. It was on guys' shorts when they did the board shorts before the branded Venom, whatever the other thing
Yeah.
was, deal, right? So what have you done? We know what Mark's been doing, but what have you done with media? Do you do much media anymore?
I did a couple in Tribeca. Uh, I appeared on the Ariel show, Hawaiian show with Mark,
Okay.
and that was Ariel's a friend. I've known him for early in his career when he was. I told him at the time. I told him he was the Cosell of MMA. He's just so smart and he's so good. He's just a great journalist and he's been a great friend to me and Mark. So we appeared on that show before Tribeca on that Monday, the 9th. And did something with Scott Torgerson here in town at QFM 96 local media, um, because Scott's been a friend and been there since day one. Um, I haven't done much. I agreed to do this with you, Zeb, frankly, because I think the wrestling community needs to hear this, and needs to embrace it and own it. We still got a lot of work to do within the wrestling community as it relates to you know to our past and our present. Um, you know, you obviously seen what's happened in the last several days at Penn State, and I know our community has work to do. There are children right now I perceive to be in danger. Um, uh, to sexual predators in our community. Do we want to have that conversation? I'm willing to. Um, but again, it's not easy stuff to talk about. I think the wrestling community would the wrestling media I've criticized in the past that I think our sport suffers from um, not being real a lot of times. I mean, you and I are having a conversation. I've not heard from Flow Wrestling or who are the media guy. I know Flow about. I don't know all the guys that are in it, and I know it's a small community, but Mark's not appeared on it. No one's reached out in the wrestling community. You and I have talked behind the scenes, but how do we not have that conversation with folks in our community? I think that's a um, it is what it is.
I think you nailed it by you say we're not real media.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, how can I can't argue with that. How can I
yeah,
can't do anything like that. I can't, I have no argument against it. We
yeah,
have people who were never, do you think the Pacers didn't do media after they lost the NBA Finals, the first game seven in like 9 years? Do you think that those guys were immune from doing media? Do you think that those guys just went and cried in the locker room? Or do you think there's guys that were asked and had to offer up and do media? Yes or
yeah.
no? Did,
Yes. I mean, if you want to be seriously considered, to be elite in the eyes of the public as a sport, and be respected, you've got to have athletes, and you got to have journalism. I mean, and I'll use the other example. You know, Kyle Schneider has a situation happen, and really no one in the media, wrestling media, has addressed it. Really, I mean, he doesn't do media after winning it at Final X. Um, how does that? How does that? He's got to have that conversation at some point,
I
doesn't
just
he?
I just don't know if we have a person. Um, Wrestling gets what wrestling deserves, though. When you put who you put at the forefront of the media, I think you get what you get. When
Yeah,
you don't put like here's an example. Chael Sonnen is kind of like he's flirting with he tries to like promote wrestling,
yeah,
right? And he's trying to find out if who the first world champ was for USA Wrestling, whether it was Fred Bozzard or Rick Sanders. Well, everybody thinks that Chael Sonnen's trying to get one over on him, like he's doing a hidden camera show, like he's trying to get a gotcha on him,
yeah.
right? They're not treating Chael Sonnen, one of the leading MMA guys on the planet Earth. They're not. They won't give him the time of day. And
Yeah. Well, yeah, a couple years ago, Daniels doing the NCAA tournament,
everybody bitched and complained
and,
about
and
it.
and it's like, come on. I mean,
We can't get out of our own way, man.
how do you, yeah. There. So again, do I? I have relationships in the wrestling community. A lot of guys reached out after the premiere and thanked me, and Mark, I know, and Adam, all of us felt love. Here's the one thing: is that we felt no negativity, really. I mean, there's one incident maybe where someone said something that was not kind of stupid, but overall, it's been overwhelmingly positive. And then the other thing I'll say is, this Bo Bartlett kid. Oh my God, good for him, making progress. And I bring his name up because you know how hard it is to do what he did. I can tell you, very hard. And so the we yeah we I love wrestling, but it's one of those you know it's a love hate relationship to some extent. I don't want to say hate because that's a little excessive. I am who I am in large part because of the sport of wrestling. It shaped who I am, both positive and negative. And do I wish we could grow the sport significantly. Yeah, I showed that. I did that. I tried that. Um, and there were some successes. I think one of the things I look to is these athletes would not be getting compensated had it not been for our brand. We were the first company to pay a living wage to an elite athlete. I mean, Jordan Burroughs was paid a significant amount of money to sponsor a brand. No other brand in the history of wrestling in the United States had ever supported an athlete to that extent. And so now to see today where, athletes are actually becoming millionaires is, I look at that and say, I had something to do with that. I know I did. I know our company did. I know our family did. And so I'm proud. I'm proud of the work we've done. And again, I'll go back to this again. There's nothing I've done better in my career, just as a human being, than to put myself in the position I put myself in as it relates to sexual abuse and our need to really have an open discussion about how to protect our kids. Cain Velasquez, again, we talk about the guy's in jail right now because his child was sexually abused in a daycare center. Seb, this stuff it's an epidemic. And if we can use our platform, if Mark Coleman can use his platform, I can use my platform. If the wrestling community could take this and use it as a way of owning it and ensuring it doesn't happen moving forward, then that's where I want to be a part of the conversation. So, yeah.
How can the wrestling community get out of its own way? How can wrestling be what MMA has exploded into? And I just don't know if we're ever going to be mainstream because we change the rules all the time. We've got
Yeah.
three different styles, and we've got way more than three different styles, but three mainstream styles: Greco, freestyle, and obviously folk style. Which whenever foreigners see folk style, they laugh at it. Just so you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
why are they holding them down? Right? Like they're like,
I
right?
I you
How do
know,
we get out of our own way? How do we hold people accountable? Make them do media, like make it mandatory for them to do media rather than just pass by. Right? It's all optional. We get that, right? I believe most of these guys, these major, the four major, NBA, NFL, um, Major League Baseball, and then there's more than that now, right? NHL. But I think everybody, golf, whatever it may be, they have to have some media availability. Like I think they
mhm.
make them do that.
Yeah. Um, you know the media piece more than I do, Zeb. I look at it from a promoting the sport piece. You know, I think the sport needs to be um, professionalized domestically. The most recent example, this Real American Freestyle. I hope that they succeed and create space where athletes can be promoted, telling stories. It's storytelling. How do we tell stories? We don't do a good job of telling stories in
Horrible
our
job. We don't give people access to
terrible.
tell stories. We don't make them tell. Like at some level, you have to have a commitment to making people tell the story.
I mean, we,
Listen, I'm gonna tell you this right now. I know a guy who hates media more than Cael Sanderson.
yeah,
His name is Brock Lesnar,
yeah,
right? But they've done an amazing job of keeping him as this like mystique. They've done an amazing job with Brock Lesnar, but then the
hmm
show, his physical presence and having him out there and he's such a freak,
yeah,
45, 47 years old, whatever he is, 48 years old, and he's still just this physical presence, right? That guy doesn't have to love media. That guy
yeah,
doesn't have to do a bunch of media. I don't want to know why? Because that guy's Brock freaking Lesnar. And
yeah,
and his physical presence and how he performs 20 dates a year, that carries that guy. Okay, so you got that guy. That is the guy that is the lone guy over there, right? Right? But then
hmm
the leader of our sport, Coach Cael Sanderson, he hates media. I mean, I don't know who hates media more, him or Brock Lesnar, right?
hmm
But he's not the same guy as a Brock Lesnar, whereas Brock Lesnar, everybody's awestruck by, right?
yeah,
I think that Penn State just does such a great job of controlling their brand, right? And why would they have outside media? You're going to
Hmm.
keep winning. You're going to catch Gable. He's going to
Hmm.
break Dan Gable's coaching record, I think. I mean, obviously, something crazy doesn't happen, but why would you do media if you're them?
Yeah.
Why would
Well,
you?
you do media because you want to grow the sport. If you truly want to grow
Yes,
the
I
sport,
understand that. I
I don't
understand
think they
that.
get. I think there's a lot of folks in our community that don't get it.
Yeah.
That there's. At the end of the day, if you want to grow wrestling, you got to grow storytelling.
Yes.
You got to be good at storytelling.
You don't push Chael Sonnen away.
You embrace you embrace
You
Daniel
say, Chael
Cormier.
Sonnen, you come here and whatever you
Yes,
need, Chael P.
yes,
Sonnen, Uncle Chael with your ridiculous glasses.
yes.
You get what you want. Who do you need to talk to and
That's
about?
right.
Because that
That's
guy's
right.
a pure intention guy. That guy's hilarious.
Yeah,
And that guy's and he's highly intelligent, super
great dude. He
smart
loves the
guy.
sport. Every time I see him, he talks about wrestling with me. I
Yeah,
think the
he
last time I
loves
saw
it.
him was about a
He
year
loves
ago.
it. He loves it. He loves
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sport.
He says to me, "What do you think about David Taylor?" And I'm like, getting the job at Okie State. And, I think David gets it a little bit better than I think this new generation.
David gets it.
I
Here's
think
what
this
I'm gonna
new
tell you.
generation.
I'm gonna tell you this. I watched a video, a minute-ish long video of Oklahoma State moving a bunch of wrestling mats. As you and
Hmm.
I know, the most miserable part of the sport of wrestling, moving old Resolite mats. They got these old one piece. They're not even the three piece. They're these one piece 42 footers they're moving. And there's music to it, and they're goofing off and they're having fun. And I'm like, I never thought anyone could make moving wrestling mats look like a fun thing. Okie State did it.
Yeah,
Okie State freaking did it, and they made, and it's like a part of their family, and he 100% gets it. But
yeah.
once again, he will control his brand.
Well, the other piece to this that I'll say is our sport is controlled by um, non-American wrestling
Yeah, I mean,
businessmen. So it's hard. You're the sports that win in this world or that are celebrated are controlled by uh, American television networks and American business people. I see this stuff going on in Russia. It looks like they're putting on great show, beautiful shows, but it's in Russia. Um, UWW's in Serbia. Um, we need something on American soil that tells our stories, keeps our athletes active. I maybe the Olympic Games is not the best place for us to promote our sport.
already
It
spoke
should be
about once. Already
it should
spoke
be part
about
it should
once.
be it should be part of it,
Yeah.
but should it be does the NBA care about the Olympic NBA? Yeah, that's a piece every 4 years. What the hell are you doing you know every 4 years? You're somewhat relevant. You're not really relevant because you're wrestling. And I wish these guys, Izzy Martinez and Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff knows how to tell stories. So
Yeah.
I wish them the best. And frankly, if I'm running wrestling in the U.S., which I'm not, USA Wrestling is tied to an old system. That old system has failed to grow the sport. And so, how do you grow the sport? You change the system,
Mhm.
and let's put all our resources into this professional, authentic. I've always believed, and I ran 4 shows, 5 shows, under budgeted, all the stuff, but authentic professional wrestling, that's the only solution I see to grow the sport. We got guys retiring at 23, 24 years old, that can have successful careers. They can. I didn't stop wrestling competitive, in the room until I was 30 some years old. I was still able to compete and train and all that stuff. We got guys they stop training, stop competing because no one's telling their stories. And so, the Olympic model, as much as I, enjoy the Olympics every 4 years, our sport is controlled by a business model that's not growing the sport, period. Not. So you can't keep doing the same thing and expect you know something to change. It's unfortunately it's the same thing. So yes, I hope I hope RAF is well funded. I wish them the best. Anything I can do to help in that in the success of that, I would jump at the opportunity to help those guys. But yeah, I think we need to really think about how we're spending our resources as a community um, to promote the sport.
Last question I have for you is an Ohio State question. You often wear your varsity jacket, and I've seen you in the picture with the Buckeye, that thing. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
Very much Mike DiSabato and the DiSabato family is tied to the Ohio State University. Um, can you still be a fan of Ohio State athletics? Are you accepted at Ohio State athletic um, competitions? Do you feel comfortable going up and seeing a coach that you know or an athlete that you know, whatever, or someone you're a fan of? Do you feel like the DeSabatos are welcome at Ohio State? Do you feel like Mike will ever, are you accepted and are you still Ohio State family and will they accept you?
Well, um, I will always be a two-time graduate of the Ohio State University. I will always be a member of the Ohio State wrestling team from 1986 to 1991, and thereafter as a I trained with the university. I was there for 9 years actually. Is that before I left for my first job? I wear that jacket as a symbol of um, the pride I have in the relationships I developed while I was at Ohio State. So, do I agree with the institution, the policies of administrators? Um, no, not always. Tom Ryan and I have, I think, we've have a relationship where we talk at times, and Tom's been generous with welcoming me to the. I went to the facility for the first time in several years back in October. He
Oh,
was
so
gracious.
you've been there since you've been involved with Coach
Well,
Ryan,
I had
the Ohio State University wrestling and the Cavelli Center and
that was yeah,
not the Cavelli Center, not a big, gigantic public recreation center, a private
yeah,
wrestling, volleyball only facility. Yeah, okay. And I mean that's so absurd for that we even have to.
yeah, yeah,
That's a crazy thing. But I understand different day and age. Got it. That's an unbelievable. That's a Taj Mahal facility, by the way.
yeah,
So you are Coach Ryan is accessible to you.
yeah,
Jack Steber, Jordan Weber, like those
yeah.
guys are accessible to you.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, Tom, like I'll shoot him a text once in a while, but he did. Like I said, in October, he invited me to come in, and that was the first time I had been in the facility since it was open, and so it was good to see Coach Jay and Logan, and got to spend some time with them, and yeah, that was an emotional time, um,
But you're
and it
not
was
nuclear to those guys. You're not a nuke. You're not radioactive to them.
well.
They'll you might be now. You might be now after the drop of the
Uh,
film, though, dude.
well, yeah, I mean, I feel comfortable enough to just communicate with Tom and Jay and Logan to some extent as well, um, and yeah, I've been to a couple. I was at when they wrestled Minnesota this year. I went down there with Mark Coleman, and so we took in a match. You know, I I'm always going to be a Buckeye. Zeb, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, during the 10-year war. I mean, I love Ohio State. I love it. And I love it enough. There's a quote by, I think, famous philosopher said, I love it enough to be able to criticize it, to help make it better. And, you know, the why of, some of the things, some of the decisions I made in the past, um, my heart was always in the fact that I love this place. I love the friendships that I developed at Ohio State, the ability to compete there for 5 years, and again, Russ and Jimmy, my life would not be what it is today. Well, you know, if I did not have that experience. Um, so I just, as my relationship now is, my son and I were at the national championship game. No administrator can take that away from me. No administrator can take away the fact that my family has 36 varsity O's in our name. That's the most varsity O's of any family in the history of Ohio State athletics. They can't take that away from me. And I wear that jacket as a symbol to all athletes who come before me and since, that um, the brotherhood, what we displayed in that film is true Buckeye brotherhood. These guys stood by each other and in the face of serious a serious atrocity. I mean, a really bad time in the university, in our history. And I just hope we get to a point where the guys that are still in the case are recognized, compensated, and we put this behind us and have some healing and embrace the future in a positive way.
Can't think of a better way to end, man. I think that's a pretty powerful uh final statement there, Mike. I don't
Yeah. Zeb, I
think
appreciate. Listen, you and I, I'll say this as well, just as a piece. There's Tom Ryan's a good example. I reached out to Tom and I apologized for some of my, I'm not, you know, I, I've learned over the last several years, and the last 7 years in particular, that I try to own when I'm part of a problem or a relationship. With my brother, for instance, we didn't talk for several years, and I knew it was eating at me that we had this tension between us, and it was eating me up. And so I just decided at one point, actually with the help of Rocky Ratliff, was actually has been a great friend to me and helped, you know, set up a time where Adam and I got together and buried the hatchet, because he's my brother, and no matter what, brothers clash. I'm sure you have the same thing in your family, but you know, I just want to get up every day now and try to love my family and have purpose and meaning and do good things and like I said, I hope to time heals all wounds. The relationship with Ohio State again. I'm a Buckeye for life. Um, and do I wish things would, the business side of athletics would change? I love seeing what I'm seeing now with NIL. I fought for it for 20 some years. It's here today. I'm not profiting from it. Frankly, what the position I've taken is, I'm sort of out of that space in a lot of ways. I'm more into other businesses and whatnot, but um, I'll just go back. This journey over the last 7 years has been the most difficult thing I've ever done. And mental health has been, it's I've had to address my mental health and you know